Weddings can be such a beautiful experience. Beautiful for the bride and groom, and of course for those who attend. The bride and groom exchange vows, walk down the aisle together, later receiving congratulations from those who attend the reception. As the reception closes, the bride will throw her bouquet, and it will be time for the bride and groom to leave the reception and head off for their honeymoon. What is the definition of the term honeymoon, and where does it come from? You and I will explore these questions in this episode of History of Everyday Sayings. Steve Carter here, and I welcome you to History of Everyday Sayings. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Just a few days ago, I received an email from a longtime colleague letting me know he and his partner are being married that next weekend, and they're going to vacation or honeymoon in Mexico. I, of course, congratulated my colleague and his bride-to-be, and as I hit send, I thought, I wonder where the term honeymoon comes from. As we explore the history of the term honeymoon, let's begin at dictionary.com. The surprising meaning of honeymoon explained. The word derives from the Old English honey moon, and that's H-O-N-Y-M-O-O-N-E, honey moon. According to this entry, there are several theories for where the name came from. That name may refer to the Mead moon, M-E-A-D, Mead moon, or honeymoon, an old name for the June full moon. June was and is a prime month for both marriage and honey harvesting. Alternatively, the name may allude to a non-romantic medieval belief that love tends to be as fleeting as the full moon, or tends to wane as the moon does. In French, the equivalent word is lune de miel, and the German version is Flittenwuchen, from flitter, which means tinsel. Not exactly positive ideas for what a marriage should or could be. How about a toast to the new couple? We all know during the wedding we will toast the couple, but does toast, as in cooked bread, have anything to do with clinking glasses together? Actually, it does. Originally, a toast was raised to the health of a beautiful or popular woman. The idea there was that her name would figuratively flavor or strengthen the drink. And drinks back then were actually flavored with spiced toast. As for the ceremoniously clinking of glasses, that custom is said to have evolved from fears of poisoning. The idea here was that liquid would spill from glass to glass, and it's believed the roots of that custom also related to the offering of sacrificial libations to the gods. Moving to batchmead.com, their article title, The Origin of the Word Honeymoon. What does it mean? Honeymoon is thought to have originated in medieval times. At that time, it was common for newlywed couples to drink mead. Mead is a fermented beverage made from honey, and they would drink that mead for a moon cycle, which of course is 30 days after their wedding. The tradition was believed to bring good luck and fertility to the newly married couple. Going to insider.com, the mysterious origin of the word honeymoon. In attempting to identify the history and meaning, this post suggests we should go to the Oxford English Dictionary, because this dictionary tracks how words have been used over centuries. They tell us the history of the word honeymoon is at the end of an etymological rabbit hole. An entry for honeymoon, as it relates to how we might understand it today, was first published in 1546, written by the playwright and poet John Heywood. According to the Old Oxford English Dictionary, it's in a poem where the speaker talks about love and art, where Heywood uses the phrase, "It was yet but honeymoon," to signal a feeling of merriment. The next usage of honeymoon is in 1592, when, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, allegedly penned by a writer named Robert Greene, in one of his narratives, and in that narrative the word appears after two people get married, quote, "To be brief, they were married. Well, that day was passed with dancing and honeymoon. It was for a month after." Put in plain English, two people got married and spent time with each other for a month. The usage explains what the word actually means, honey, because it's a sweet period of time, and moon, because it takes a month for the moon to wane and wax anew. It alludes to love waning steadily as the moon does, according to the Old Oxford English Dictionary. Subsequent uses of the word honeymoon basically translate to a happy period of time following a marriage. We don't see any usage of honeymoon as we would understand it today as a vacation immediately after a wedding. We don't see any references like that for another 200 years. And by 1821, it acquired a verb form, honeymooning, and the noun form even got a few modifiers attached like honeymoon couple, or honeymoon period, and honeymoon suite. Moving to dentalfloss.com, they tell us the etymology of the word comes from the Old English honeymoon, Honymoone. Honey refers to, honey. Honey is a reference to honey, Honey, and it refers to the indefinite period of tenderness and pleasure experienced by a newlywed couple, and how sweet the marriage is. Moon, meanwhile, refers to the fleeting amount of time that sweetness would last. While honeymoon has a positive connotation today, it was first used as a term to warn newlyweds about waning love. The first recorded description of the word comes from 1542, when Samuel Johnson wrote, "The first month after marriage, when there is nothing but tenderness and pleasure, originally having no reference to the period of a month, but comparing mutual affection of newly married persons to the changing moon, which is no sooner full that it begins to wane." And the site goes on to tell us honeymoon has origins that date back to the 5th century, when cultures represented calendar time with moon cycles. Back then, a newlywed couple drank mead, or the honey, during their first moon of marriage. Mead is a honey-based alcoholic drink believed to have aphrodisiac properties. Moving on to a post in the New York Post, which originally came from The Sun. Regarding the idea of honeymoon, they tell us, okay, so in principle this sounds fantastic, but in truth it was pretty grim. The idea of honeymoon dates back as far as the 5th century in a number of European cultures when time was measured in moon cycles. Apparently, kidnapping was a thing back in the Middle Ages. According to some historians, the honeymoon is a relic of marriage by capture. The groom would hide his kidnapped bride away for months until their family stopped looking for them, or they became pregnant, at which point it was considered too late for the marriage to be nullified. It's believed some poor men did this to avoid having to pay the woman's family a dowry, in areas such as China, South America, East and South Asia. This was also a practice in some areas of Africa and in some European gypsy communities. Moving forward to modern times, the article tells us that the practice of honeymoons is more varied than it may have been in previous generations. There are basically, according to this article, two ideas related to how honeymoons should be experienced. One would be mini honeymoons, we perhaps call them mini moons, where the couple would take a weekend or a few days, perhaps even locally, so they could save their money for a house or other purposes. Some couples, however, opt for an opulent honeymoon. Examples of this would be in destination weddings, where the bridal party and perhaps an entourage of other people would spend thousands of dollars to travel to exotic locations for the wedding, and they would all party together for a week, 2 weeks, whatever time that couple felt inclined to honeymoon. To editorialize here, from my point of view, this is a rather wasteful practice, but it's up to the couple, whatever makes them happy. If you would like to take a deeper dive into the meaning of honeymoon and the history of the term, you'll find all of the references that I mentioned in this episode. You'll find those listed in the show notes. You'll also find a link to my website, stressreliefradio.com, where you can listen to previous episodes of this show and other shows that are part of our Stress Relief Radio Network. Speaking of destinations, that destination is stressreliefradio.com. If you are not yet following the History of Everyday Sayings show, you can do that where you get your podcasts. When you follow, you will never miss an episode. If you would like to be in touch, email me at cartermethod@gmail.com. Until our next visit together, your host here, Steve Carter, wishing for you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.